Welcome back, everybody, to Bourbon Breakthroughs. I'm laughing because my guest here had me cracking up 2 seconds before we got started. So I'm already laughing. My guest today is Jess Burns. Houses. No, I'm kidding. Jess Burns, thank you for coming on to Bourbon and Breakthroughs. I'm so excited to have you and share you and your work with the world. How you feeling?
I feel great, but not so great that you just told people I burn homes down.
So Jess told me the story about her first set of business cards. I need you to tell people that quick story because it
Okay, so my first name is Jess, my last name is Burns, and I'm a realtor. And I didn't have a professional email address. So I did what every other realtor does, which is first name, last name, homes at gmail.com. So I had these beautiful cards printed. They were like 87 cents a card. They were gorgeous. With an email address that said my first name, my last name, homes at gmail.com. So Jess Burns Homes at gmail.com. And I did not even pick up on it until I'd given out like 50 of them. And someone goes, "Oh, that's such a cute little gimmick." And I said, "What?" They said, "Your email address." I had no idea. They said, "Oh, you burn homes down."
you know, when you learn about things to do and not do in business, there are so many things they just don't tell you. Like, like have someone proof everything your first 6 months in business. Well, I'm excited to dive in. Jess is one of the most fun people I know. She is one of the most heartfelt people I know. And one of the main reasons I wanted her to be on early on in this Bourbon and Breakthroughs series is she is so passionate. She takes full ownership of her work, her life, her hobbies, the people that come into her world. She loves them hard, and she is fantastic at what she does. So we have a lot to get through. And of course, we're going to drink some bourbon as well. Today, we're going to be jumping into the rabbit hole again. We have Heigold, which you'll learn a little bit more about here in a few minutes when we open these bottles up. And just to get started real quick, can you give everybody, I'd love to tell them about the leads that you actually, no, I'll frame this for you because you're going to be modest about it. In the last 3 or 4 days, Jess has gotten 6 qualified leads, all from her being herself, organically, on social media, for free, at ease, in flow, just doing her thing. And she is magnetic. And this is one of the things that I do want to end up talking about. Jess, what are you doing right now that makes you so magnetic for business to come to you compared to, let's say, a year or so ago before we got started coaching and things were not going that
I'd say doubling down on being comfortable in my skin, which
way?
means being uncomfortable.
What do you mean?
So figuring out what makes me tick and going all in on that. But that can be super uncomfortable because it's ballsy and I'm super relationship driven. So what if people don't like me? What if they don't like that intensity, that intense ballsiness or whatever it is?
How do you deal with that?
Bourbon.
before 7 p.m. How do you deal with that? That's
Oh, aside from, breathing deep breaths, really, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that the people that don't like me are not meant for me. So move on next.
yeah. Yeah, you're going to hear in Jess's language, she's very high I on the DISC assessment. And we joke about this, that, high I's, they're bubbly. They are the life of the party. They're usually very colorfully dressed. You can see her bright red earrings if you're watching the video. They'll often have like a feather boa or like the brightest shirt in the room, and they're the life of the party. But on the flip side of that superpower of being sociable and bright and bubbly all the time is a deep fear of rejection often creeps in. And Jess has handled this. Like she just said, like she has learned to get uncomfortable and lean into that discomfort and own it anyway. and people are noticing. She's being asked more and more to speak at different events and for different groups. She's putting a group together right now, so we'll have a link in the show notes for you to jump into that if you want. So, did I miss anything there, Jess?
You nailed it.
And if you haven't picked up by now, I should have said it in the beginning that Jess is a coaching client, so she's got dirt on me too, y'all. So don't worry about it.
Do we get to talk about that?
Yeah, but I'm going to edit it out. So, well, let's get into our bourbon here real quick before we go too far. Today, I'm going to put this up for the camera. Today, we're drinking Heigold by Rabbit Hole, our friends just down the street here in Louisville, Kentucky. They have been so kind and generous to my wife and I since we moved back from California. And honestly, I'm so happy that they're working with us on this project, the Bourbon Breakthroughs, because they have so many good expressions. But before we hit record, Jess and I were talking about their rye. Jess, what do you think about their rye?
Holy crap. It's the best rye and makes the best Black Manhattans. And I've gotten more people turned on to it than I can count.
So what's a Black Manhattan?
Okay, so Black Manhattan is a Manhattan minus the sweet vermouth, add Averna Amaro.
And
so did you want flavor profile?
No, I didn't. I mean, yeah, essentially, like if you're looking to make one of these, you need, we're talking about Boxer Grail rye, Rabbit Hole's Boxer Grail rye. Averna, you said Amaro.
Yeah, yeah. And then orange bitters and normal bitters.
Angostura bitters, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
2 ounces of rye, 1 ounce Amaro, Averna, and 1 dash of orange bitters, 1 dash of Angostura bitters, right?
Well, my secret is like 2 dashes of each bitters, and then a little bit, I think I do a little bit of the cherry juice, just a little bit.
Oh, like the Luxardo juice?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Luxardo cherries make that drink. So, well, yeah, I'm with you. If anybody hasn't tried that, like if you're a Manhattan person all day long, that's going to blow your mind.
Once you go Black, you never go back.
Jess is single, by the way. If anybody is,
he's not lying.
So you know, it's always fun too, because people are like, what do you talk about on Bourbon and Breakthroughs? I'm like, that's the fun part. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. All right, so let's get into this. Like I said, we're drinking Heigold by Rabbit Hole. It's their high rye double malt bourbon, and it's the newest addition in their core lineup of their whiskeys. It separates itself from all the other bourbons out there with unique notes of butterscotch, citrus, and this comforting peppery spice from all the high rye that they've packed in there. Hey, what's up? This is Chris Goodman, and we'll be back to your episode in about 45 seconds. Listen, if you're ready to take your life and your business up to your next level of success, freedom, fulfillment, fun, all of it, you need the help of a top coach. All the best in the world at anything have a great coach in their corner. They can help you identify your goals, develop a plan to achieve them, give you accountability, give you support, give you guidance all along your way up to the top. Now, look, most coaches are created equally, we'll say. They don't perform equally, however. So if you want to get the most out of your coaching, you need to work with somebody who has a proven track record of success. And that's where I come in. I have over 15,000 hours of coaching people just like you. And after coaching countless entrepreneurs, CEOs, executives, influencers, real estate agents, you name it, I've probably coached them. I can do the same for you. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and contact me. Go to Goodman Coaching Inc. inc.com. That's goodmancoachinginc.com. Fill out the quick application and let's talk about coaching you to your goals. Now let's get back to the episode. So let's get into this. You ready?
Yeah.
So I'm going to teach Jess what we call a Kentucky chew here in a second. And if you've watched any of the other episodes, you'll already know what I'm talking about. But first, let's just do some right off the top. What do you get? Oh, I should tell everybody that you were almost a sommelier. That's a little bit, that's a relevant note here. What transpired that
That's
made
a
you,
rabbit hole we can go down.
well, just real quick, I think that's relevant for, the tasting notes that you have.
Mhm.
Tell us about that.
Well, I get really passionate about the things I love and enjoy. Wine is one of them. Currently it's bourbon, but at one point I managed a brewery taproom restaurant, got really into beer and also got into wine. So I live in wine country. So that
Yeah,
plays a
that makes a big
part.
difference. I live in
Yeah.
bourbon country, you live in wine country. It's a lifestyle. And for some people, like I was on a retreat in Texas in January, and a lot of the guys have no awareness of bourbon, and it's just like not a thing in their world. And they're like, so you guys drink like all the time? I'm like, well, no, but when you appreciate something, you treat it a little differently, right? Just like
Mhm.
wine in Napa, just like art in Italy, So
Right.
for you, what keeps bringing you back to bourbon and things like it?
So, one, I don't get bloated when I drink it.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, very practical. Okay.
Yes, yeah. Two, man, it can be so complex and even complex, so complex you can add, like I have a giant rock in this glass. It would totally change the flavor if I put mini ice cubes in there.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, what other substance can you do that with that would completely transform a drink?
And the endless variety of cocktails is always fun for me too, because I'm like, how can a whiskey sour taste like that and an old fashioned taste like that? And so for people who like a high degree of variety in their world, it's a lot of fun to get in here and play with this. So um, right off the bat, Jess, you've got a lot of experience here. What do you get in your notes?
Oof, I'm still learning the bourbon notes, and mine got watered down a little bit.
Well,
Mm,
you can pass if you want.
so yeah, no, so kind of like butterscotch, but like Werther's caramel, so which isn't like real caramel,
My
but in
brother,
in a good way, in a good way.
well, I was laughing because like my brother's somebody who he doesn't do all the tasting note stuff. He's like, yeah, all that smells like this bourbon. That's what I smell. Like, but
Well, and
go
it
ahead.
smells kind of like perfumey too, but like perfumey is like the wrong word. But it's very smooth, it's very clean, it's nice, it's very approachable. There is absolutely zero burn in the smell.
Yeah, for me, it's like a campfire right out of the gate. Just
Mm,
oak and that you can smell that char in there. The fun thing about Rabbit Hole too is they toast their barrels, so they warm the barrels up before they char them, and it gives this intense flavor profile. Instead of having to age it for 10 years, they found a way to do that and bring even more flavor out of the wood by heating up those sugars and those other elements in there. Yeah, I mean, you can smell the rye before you even get to your glass, which is I'm a big rye. You are a big rye fan. I am too. So if you
mm.
like that kind of peppery, um, not just the spice flavor, but the almost bite of the pepper, it's a blast. So, all right, I'm going to teach you what a Kentucky Chew is. You ready? So
Yep.
Kentucky Chew is to help acclimate your palate so it doesn't just like reject what it might consider poison at first, because this one's 95 proof. So almost half of what's in the glass is alcohol. So if you were to put a whole lot of this on your palate at once, your body's gonna your face is gonna contort and your body's gonna tense up and think something's wrong here. So in order to get the body to not do that, we're gonna put just a couple of drops on our tongue and roll it all around your mouth, and like you're gonna look like you're chewing with your mouth closed. Just basically roll it all around and let your whole palate know that this is actually by design on purpose, that it doesn't have to freak out. What do you think? Oh, she's still going.
Okay.
Now you can come back. Well, first of all, any takeaways from that experience?
was really weird.
I had
I
never
wasn't
done
sure if
that.
I was supposed to swish it around like mouthwash.
Basically, yeah. I had never done that until I went to a distillery, and on the tour they taught us that, and it completely changed the second sip. So let's go back and get your second sip and see if you have any
I think I
different.
should have not put an ice cube in mine first.
Well, it's okay.
That changes it.
Mm. I love it. I think
That's
it's great.
interesting. Oh wow, the flavors come out more in that second sip.
Tell me what you mean.
Mm. The first one is kind of, I mean, it was just a little bit, but it was like, "Er, what is this?" It's also 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my time. Cheers.
Cheers. You're day drinking, but it's work, so we'll give you a pass
I
today.
think my palate was a little bit like, it's 3 p.m. What are you doing? And the second sip is like, but is it 3? It's like 6 p.m. Eastern time, so it's okay. Come on, girl. Like,
One of my first guests, we recorded our episode at like, it was supposed to be 10 in the morning, and we pushed it back to noon so that he didn't have to drink before noon. I was like, all right, lesson learned. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to schedule that early with different time zones and all. Okay. So the second taste, did you say it was intense? I'm sorry. I forgot what you said there.
no, the first was a little bit more intense, but it was a little bit. It was just a few drops, right? The second one was a lot cleaner, smoother. I was able to taste it more.
Yeah. I really love this expression. I think it's a bold bourbon. It is, people would say this about some of the higher proof bourbons out there, that it's a man's bourbon, right? I'm like, no, it's a serious bourbon. Don't get me wrong. It's got a ton of flavor. It's not backing down with that rye finish in there, and it means it, but I like that because if you want to sit outside and have, a nice bourbon around a fire or with your friends or something, you can do this neat. If you want something that'll stand up in a cocktail, like an old fashioned, without losing all the character and just washing out all those notes, I think the higher proof, at 95 proof, it's not that high, but compared to like an 80 proof bourbon, this really stands up, and you still get all the full flavor profile in there.
I felt really pressured. So just now when I was looking down, I want you to know I was looking at some other flavor ideas, because I'm like, although I can be really good at pulling out flavors, I also need to look at the flavor wheel. So yeah, toasted oak, toffee, vanilla.
Coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I said perfumey earlier, I just looked, and I didn't mean perfumey, herbaceous.
Herbaceous. Okay.
Yeah. I think that nails it.
This is fun. So it's fun because a lot of people listening are going to be like, seriously, you all think you taste toffee in this gasoline type of,
Well, why don't they go try it and find out?
That's what I was going to say is, again, I'm going to bring you back to, it's about not only an acquired taste, but an appreciative taste. When you start to get into this world, I love rabbit holes saying there's no going back. Once you try a really great bourbon like this, there is no going back, because you just start to explore and have a lot of fun. So let's talk about Jess for a while instead of bourbon. Jess, we've been coaching together for almost a full year now, I think, right? Yeah. So you've had lots of breakthroughs, more than I could possibly count in just 1 year. Show's called Bourbon and Breakthroughs. We're having our bourbon. What are some of the breakthroughs that you might be able to walk us through that would help other people, either inspire them to take their life into their own hands like you have, or inspire them to pour their heart into their work like you have? What are some of those breakthroughs that you've, smashed through in this last year?
I think the biggest one is understanding that I'm in control of my life. As in, it is really up to me to make that decision rather than live by default.
Okay. Rather than live by default, what do you mean?
Right. So each decision builds into another circumstance. right? So the decisions I made last year have built up to lead me to where I am today. So taking that control and understanding that it is within my power to change my future and to change my business and my life, it's just a matter of me making the choice to do that
Mm.
rather than allowing life to happen to me.
So what would you say to people who are like, well, yeah, that's good for you. You figured that out, but that it doesn't work that way in my world. I have all these things happening, all these things going wrong, all these problems. So my life isn't like yours. What would you say to somebody who thinks that
It's purely mindset. I mean, I could list all the bad things that have happened to me. That I mean, I have so many reasons to have given up a lot, many times, big reasons, and it was my choice not to.
way? Can we be real? What's one of the big reasons that you could have given up?
Oh, um, I mean, I lost everything years ago. I was humiliated in a very, very big way, but I was homeless. I had come out of a very abusive relationship that was physically, financially, and emotionally abusive, sexually abusive. And then I wind up homeless, having to leave the state and not knowing if I could come back and have a career when I came back.
And you just
So
said
that
that for anybody who can't see Jess, she just said that with a smile on her face. How can you say that with a smile on your face now?
one, I think my default when I'm nervous is I smile. So that's my poker face.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
But no, but really because I'm really detached from that now. I mean, I was a completely different person when all of that happened, and I thought that I needed that to define me. And I realized that that whole circumstance and situation, I was allowing it to define me rather than making the choice to move on and choose again.
Mm. Choose again. So, for some people, this is the first time they're hearing that you can just choose. Like
Mhm.
you make it sound like you just wave this magic wand and it all goes away. What do you mean when you say I can choose again?
I mean, it does feel like you can wave the magic wand and make it go away. That's the beauty of it. So, so you get to choose who you hang out with, who you surround yourself with, what information you allow into your brain, what you consume, whether it's content on social media, whether it's TV, conversations you have in group settings and private settings, you control all of that. And the second you decide, I will no longer surround myself with people who bring me down, who suck the life out of me, who are bad energy around me. This once you choose to not surround yourself with that, amazing things happen.
Mm. What are some of the amazing things that have happened to you since you've started living life this way?
Oh, I have quadruple, quintupled my business.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what the word is, but my business has boomed. I am healthier than I've ever been in my entire life. Um, I am happier than I have ever been. I am more myself than I have ever been in my life.
That one I think is the most fun because that's where Jess gets into this magnetic, flow state where things like 6 leads and a new puppy just come right into. You want to tell people about your brand new puppy is like 2 days old?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I was planning on getting a puppy 3 months from now. I was talking to some people who had just bred their male dog, and I was basically on the list to get one of the dogs. And then I get the phone call, the female's not pregnant. And we were sure that she was pregnant, but they had the ultrasound. She's not pregnant. I was super bummed. And on the other end of the phone, she goes, but the people who we got our dog from had an accidental litter of 16 dogs.
Just a
And
small accident. Yeah.
and there's 5 left, and the breeder's personal situation, life situation has exploded. She needs these dogs gone now. And I said, okay, well, I really didn't want to, I don't know. So I thought I'd be nice and just go check out this ranch. There were 5 dogs left. I wanted a male. There were 2 males left. And I'm thinking, yeah, like 2 males. Let's see how this goes. And I was not prepared. I had no bed, no collar, no leash, no dog food. My house is not puppy proof. And I came home with a puppy. That dog just was glued to me from the second I got on that ranch. I didn't even know how much I was going to pay. I mean, this is a very expensive breed, and I didn't even ask. I did negotiate it down once I found out, but
I think half the people who have dogs are going, yep, as soon as you got into that conversation, you were going to end up with a dog at some point in the near future. Like just
yeah,
being in the being in the orbit of a puppy means you're going home with one soon.
yeah, yeah. This thing, he was all dirty, and I mean, wasn't like the cutest thing to look at either at first.
Well, let's talk about where you are now, because you said your business has it's probably more than quintupled at this point, because you're being proactive about it. The leads and the people are coming to you. The network you've built, the database you've built, it's starting to pay dividends. Like things are clicking, but that's not to say that it's a walk in the park and that it's easy every day. What are some of the things that you're still breaking through, even after all this growth, and even after overcoming those very real challenges you mentioned earlier?
Mm. It's very easy for me to say yes to things that excite me. And with being in a flow state where I'm attracting all of these wonderful opportunities, it's difficult to say no to some of them and filter through. And it's all, I have to remember that because I have the decision, I have the power to make this choice and decide what kind of life I want to live. I have to constantly ask, well, what kind of life do I want to live? So when an opportunity comes to me, does this serve that purpose?
Mm. How do you do that in the moment?
I don't. I pause and marinate on it for, a day or, sometimes I make a mistake and say yes to too many things, but I try not to say yes right away in the moment.
Mm. Can we talk about your rules for a minute? Because you had this line. Oh, go ahead. For anybody watching the video, I'm sorry, for anybody not watching the video, she's got to post it. What's it say, Jess? Because I can't read the middle.
Rules got me into this mess.
All right. Tell us about
I'm sorry,
that.
is that what you were referring
Yeah,
to?
100%. 100%. I mean, so many people are in this exact situation right now, and they're completely unaware of it. They don't know what they don't know. I think I've said this on every podcast so far. Dr. Joe Dispenza has a great quote about this. They're in the jar and they cannot read the label that's on the outside. They're spinning around in this situation, this circumstance, this terrible thing, or maybe even this great thing that's going on, and they're not looking up and appreciating it. But they are living by a certain set of rules that are keeping them there. So I'd love for you to tell people about your Post-it and how you got to that.
Oh, shoot. I think I kind of black out all the bad stuff in my head. What I'm trying to remember what rules I had. I think one of the rules is that I had to work my ass. Am I allowed to cuss?
Oh, yeah.
Is that I have to work my ass off in order to make a bunch of money. I grew up with my dad having a saying that you work from can to can't, from the time that you can until the time that you cannot, each day, every day. And that was ingrained in my head, from can to can't. And then another favorite saying of his is he does a lot of business in China and Taiwan, and there's a saying, mo karimaka. And that's when you answer the phone, before saying hello, the person on the other end, if it's a business call, like a boss calling an employee, instead of saying, hey, how's it going over there? You say, mo karimaka, are you making money? And then they say yes or no. And after that, then hello. Now we can discuss that yes or no. And
Really?
so I was raised with you work from can to can't and mo karimaka. And mo karimaka was a joke, but there was some underlining seriousness with it and with him being an entrepreneur. So with that being those seeds being planted, they were rules that I had to work super, super hard, sell my soul so that I can mo karimaka,
Mm.
make that money.
What shifted?
Um, when my health started declining, which I just remembered, I guess another breakthrough is that a year ago I was unable to walk practically. I was in physical therapy twice a week for 3 months because of back issues with um, so much pain. I was in the hospital, and then yeah, I could hardly get out of bed, let alone show property. I did, but it was so painful. And it was all because of this thought of you got to keep going, got to keep working. You have to work harder. So I don't like the saying work hard, work smarter, not harder. So I want to see if I can come up with something better. But basically, give yourself some slack and take a breather. Feed yourself before you feed others.
Mm. How many entrepreneurs need to hear that right now? Like this is the double-edged sword of loving what you're doing and building and bringing to life in the world, that it feels like there's never enough of you to go around because there's always so much to be done and there's always so many more people to serve or help or get your product to. Or some people are just, making money and they don't want to slow down because their perception is if they slow down as a person, their business will slow down. And it seems
Mhm.
like you've started to find a new, I don't know if it's necessarily a rhythm, but a way to, as Jay Papasan would say, and Gary Keller would say in The One Thing, to counterbalance this old approach with self-care. You said your health is better than ever. You've now got a puppy, so that's time consuming. How did you learn to do that counterbalance move?
I think understanding that there, like you're saying, counterbalance instead of balance. So there is no balance in life. You will always have to give more in one area of life. And then once you feel like with work, let's say, okay, you need to pour into work until you realize right before your personal life is suffering, stop and counterbalance that and pour back into your personal life. And there is a little bit of a tug of war going on with that, but I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but I'm better at
Mm.
playing tug of war.
How do you know you're better?
I feel good. Um, things aren't as hard anymore. Work is fun. I don't call it work.
Yeah.
um, I don't have to show property. I don't have to do open houses. I don't have to do anything. I get to. And I mean, I get to talk to people and go in houses all the time and teach other realtors. I get to do that.
So when you said it's a mindset thing earlier, I think the people who are still listening to the show right now get that, right? There is, if hardcore data wasn't enough, which there's plenty out there, you can jump on, the Huberman Lab podcast. You can jump on any number of the top rated podcasts out there right now, not just in any given space or not just in the personal growth and self-help niche, but top podcasts, period. I think of Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan and how many personal development people they've had on there who say something to the equivalent of how you think creates all of your results. Right. And it seems like you've started to find this really great, um, again, I don't want to say balance or rhythm because I think it's more chaotic than that. Don't you? It's not like this, like,
That
you
sounds
know,
about right.
yeah, yeah. And to be real, right? Like, especially in real estate where you're getting hit from all sides of the transaction, and things can fall through at any moment. The market can shift. The buyer's personality could be different than the last one. Like all these different, I think out of every industry, maybe other than manufacturing that I've coached people in, real estate is the most dynamic when it comes to problem solving because you're getting hit from every single possible angle. And it makes you have to come to terms with, all right, either I'm going to take ownership of how I show up to all these problems, or I'm going to get whipped into submission by all these problems. Right. Is that a
I
fair way to?
absolutely agree. I mean, it is total chaos 100% of the time. It is absolute chaos. And um, yeah, you have to be mindful of how you're showing up to your clients and how you're projecting your energy.
So you're healthier than ever. How are you prioritizing that when so many different things are coming at you from all these angles?
Well, you just said it. So many things are coming at me from all these different angles that it's not even a question. I mean, I have to have my morning workout in. I wake up at 4:50 every morning and go to spin class, which it feels like I'm in a club, so it's not that hard. You know, it's all blacked out. They pump up music, play party music, and you're spinning to the beat. I mean, it is like going to a freaking club at 5 o'clock in the morning, but you don't have a hangover and you get to be productive the rest of the day.
Yeah. Why
So,
get up at 4:50 to go do that?
well, the class starts at 5:30. So,
So why make it to a 5:30 class? Why not do like a 9 p.m. class or something that's a little more comfortable?
uh, I think there's a formula, and for everyone, the formula is different. But I figured out that the formula for success for me means working out in a group environment early in the morning before I talk to or do anything else.
Okay.
So if you want to lean into that high I,
Actually,
I
I
so
really want to
relationship
lean, well, what I
oriented.
really want to lean into is you said I figured out what worked for me.
hmm
How long did you have to stick with the 4:50 a.m. wake up call before you're like, this actually works?
Oh gosh, maybe 2 to 3 weeks of getting uncomfortable. Um, I was going to yoga for months and months. I had to work up to that spin class because of my back issues. So it was like 6 or 7 months of going to yoga at night first because they didn't have morning yoga classes. So by the time I tried spin class, I'll be honest, I think it was a 4:30 p.m. class maybe, and I hated it.
Mm,
I hated that spin class and I didn't my knees were aching and I'm thinking, "Oh, spin bicycles are not for me. This is terrible. I'm not going anywhere, just
mm.
spinning in place." But my rule is usually 3 times. Try something 3 times. When it comes to, as long as it's safe to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
try something 3 times. And if after the third time it's not my thing, then okay, but I give it a fair shake. So I experimented a little bit with afternoon classes and morning classes and 5:30 a.m. baby.
I think that's fun though, because I couldn't tell you how many people, one of my good friends is a serious runner. And we were talking about how, he'll run literally hundreds of miles in a week or two sometimes. I'm like, dude, first of all, why? And do you love it that much? And he's like, well, my why is I really want to stay strong. I enjoy pushing my limits. And he said, and the how I keep going or whatever is he's like, no, I hate every step. He said, I hate almost every step of almost every run. And that blew my mind because I was like, why would you continue to not just run a few dozen miles a week, but 100 miles a week or so? Like, come on. And he said, yeah, but this is just what I'm into right now. This is the way I want to push my body. And this was like the first time I'd ever heard a runner describe this almost battle, right? Of like, can I win here? Can I beat this here? And even though it's so uncomfortable and I hate it, I'm still going to do it anyway. And I think people who get into personal growth, it's like a rabbit hole, right? Like once you go down that path of pushing yourself and seeing what you're capable of. But I think the major distinction is it doesn't have to be as uncomfortable as running 100 miles, right? Like it's a choice at that point. Like you said in the very beginning, it is a mindset option of whether it has to be miserably uncomfortable or just some small discomfort. And then you do the action anyway. What do you think?
I agree. And I will say that I've been PRing a lot lately, and the first, well, a lot of those PRs have come after drinking some rabbit hole the night before.
No kidding? Really?
Not kidding. I don't think I've ever told anyone that. So I, for a while, thought that my secret was that if I drink whiskey the night before, there's 100% chance I will PR in my spin class the next day.
So
So
for anybody who doesn't know what PR means, you want to describe what your PRs?
personal record. Yeah, personal record. So and with spinning, you know, I measure that with RPM, so my speed and my watts, my energy output. So I spin faster at a higher resistance mornings after I drink whiskey.
You are stronger because of whiskey. Is that what you're saying?
1000%. That is the answer to all things.
I am laughing because Matt at Rabbit Hole is going to have a field day with that. He is going to absolutely love that. This is great. So again, do you think, like, how could one person drink some whiskey the night before and PR, and one person could drink some whiskey the night before and not even want to go to spin class?
Well, I didn't want to go the next morning,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, but one time, there was only one time I pushed myself to go when I was like, oh, I drank whiskey last night. Ugh. And then I PR'd. And after that, I was like, okay, so the next time I drink whiskey and I woke up the next morning not feeling to go, I literally was like, well, last time I PR'd. So after a night of whiskey, so maybe I'll PR this morning too. Well, let's just, as I say, fuck around and find out.
That's so funny. In my head, I was like, oh, she got into possibility. And in your head, you're like, I'm like, fuck around and find out. So I do want everybody to notice real quick something major that she just kind of skipped past. She said, I thought, oh, I wonder if da 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 da, right? Or what if da 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 da. And suddenly this possibility opened up. Whereas before she was in this judgment, this defeatism of, oh, I feel like crap. I don't want to go. I hate this. This is not good. I'd rather go to sleep. I'd rather be warm in my bed. Da, 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 da. All she did in the split second that she mentioned was switch into curiosity. Right? And she's like, I wonder if I could PR. I wonder if, and just that fast. So if you caught that, good on you for listening carefully. And secondly, where can you apply that right now? Because I know if you're listening, if you've made it this far with us, you're in there. Where can you apply some curiosity, some possibility, and switch one of those thoughts to, I wonder if it's possible I could actually do the best I possibly could. I could PR in something if I tackled it. Any thoughts on that, Jess?
On with my life? Or
Sure. Really?
no, well, no, I was just gonna add one more tidbit of
Yeah.
like waking up in the morning after a night of whiskey or not whiskey. Um, if you have a Nest thermostat, my secret is you crank up the heat, schedule it to crank up the heat when it's time to get out of bed. So you're so warm that it's uncomfortable for you to stay in bed. So you have to get out of bed and put your gym clothes on.
I have never heard that one.
That was another secret I used.
I have heard one of my earliest clients started putting his alarm clock. He didn't have his phone in his bedroom, so he used an alarm clock, and he would put it over in the bathroom, and in front of the alarm clock would be all of his clothes, his workout clothes, his shoes, his socks, everything he needed to get dressed and go to the gym. And so he had to get out of bed to shut the alarm clock off. And he had to, if he was going to try to go back to bed, he'd have to pass his workout clothes and shoes and everything right there. And so you know what he always did, right? He'd hit the thing, and on the way back, he'd say, all right, it's right here. I'll just put the shoes on. And as soon as, like he said, it was, I think 7 or 8 days of doing that, it became a habit. Like, okay, this is just what we do.
So that's interesting. So I'm such a deep sleeper that I will turn my alarms off in my sleep and I will sleepwalk. So I did a trick like that when I was in college, and I set multiple alarms all over the bedroom and the house, and I would get up and go turn them off in my sleep, but I would have no recollection of them going off. But it's important to note that both that and turning the heater on is changing your physiological state before you have a chance to change your mental state. So whether it's getting up out of bed or turning the heater on, or if you have a bed that like shakes you like something, just change your physiological state and then your mental state will follow.
If you own the bed from The Exorcist, this would.
I'm pretty sure there's beds that mattresses that vibrate. I shouldn't go. I don't know.
No, that's a different show. That's a different podcast. How's your bourbon treating you? Has it changed flavor? Has it
It's gotten a little watered down.
well, that's not good.
Let's see.
Mine, mine again
Ooh.
tastes like, I just keep coming back to the words serious bourbon. Like, even though mine's been on ice for what, 15, 20 minutes, it still has a ton of flavor. It still has that that butterscotch note in there, and that just that backhanded slap of like toasty oak and campfire that I really love in a bourbon, because I'm, for whatever reason, my wife teases me about this. I'm obsessed with campfires. I think it's because I grew up in the woods and we had fires like every weekend. But anything that kind of like brings me back to that nostalgic like smell or flavor, I'm a big fan of. What do you think?
I think that I taste I just had it like orange zest. A little bit of orange zest, orange peel.
My marketing notes from Rabbit Hole say bursts of citrus of varying flavor. How about that?
How about that? Is there a sommelier version for bourbon?
Yeah, actually, I'm not kidding. There was a somm that took us through a private tasting. I did a Bourbon Breakthroughs live back in 2019. And we're going to do one again. If you're listening carefully here, we're going to do one again in Louisville, Kentucky, September 8th through the 10th. Don't have any other details other than we're going to do something live. The last time we had a sommelier take us through a private tasting, and it was fascinating what we could pull out with some guidance. And this is, for everybody listening, this is not a surprise. I believe in coaching. I believe everybody needs a guide, a coach, a mentor, somebody to not only introduce them to new ways of thinking and being, but to show them the way, right? And this guy did that in real time for us and with us, with different types of bourbons and all kinds of whiskeys. And he even taught us that, I did this with, it might've been John Conley. I did this on a previous Bourbon and Breakthroughs. If you pour that whiskey in there and you put your nose at the very bottom of the glass and crack your mouth open and breathe in slowly, you'll get different notes, tasting notes, than if you did at the top of the glass, where all that vapor from the alcohol comes off.
That is a secret that I use when teaching people how to smell wine. There's
No kidding.
different. So the top of the glass, the middle of the glass, and the bottom of the glass depends on whether you're going to smell the fruit, the barrel, whether it's toasted, neutral, or the bottom is alcohol. So the bottom is always alcohol. If you put your nose in a wine glass, right at the very bottom of it, and it just, if it stings, not good.
That's fascinating because, yeah, I guess because it's such a higher proof on bourbon
I
anyway.
don't
For
get
me,
that with this.
well,
It's
at
also
the
a different
top.
shaped glass.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a different shaped glass for
too.
sure. Not that vapor is going to roll up, especially mine's curved, so it's probably part of it. But yeah, that's so. Again, there's an art and a science to this, and the art part is everybody's palate's a little bit different, and it's going to hit your nose a little different. Lindsay teases me. She's like, you could, if a field mouse farted across town, you'd smell it. Like, so I enjoy things that taste good for a different, I have a different level of experience there because my nose is so sensitive. But for other people, like you might get into this and be like, oh, Chris and Jess really raved about this, and it might hit your palate in a way that's just not that much fun. But I would suggest you keep going.
Mm-hmm.
real quick, editor, we're going to pause. Jess, do you want to make an old fashioned? Do you want to do something different? Do you want to take the ice out?
Yeah, because I did not pour that much in there, and so it's like totally watered down.
Yeah, do what you got to do. We'll pause right
Okay,
here. Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll pause this. Okay, we're back. We had to take a quick break because Jess decided it was a wise decision to make an old fashioned out of her Heigold here. Meanwhile, we're going to debate the right way to make an old fashioned.
Oh, there is no debate.
You're right. There is no debate because you can use simple syrup and it's not a problem.
It's not a problem if you're a commoner. I shouldn't have said that.
So I have a ritual, a way of making an old fashioned, and comes from Death and Company. If you guys want to Google Death and Company, it's one of the top ranked bars in the country. They take 2 1/4 to 2.5 ounces of bourbon, depending on what you're using. 1/4 ounce of simple syrup, not a sugar cube and not a muddler, simple syrup. 2 to 3 dashes of Angostura bitters, and you stir that over a solid but clean block of ice. I actually use distilled water for my ice. Strain that over a big cube and express orange oil over that, and then it's up to you if you want to throw the fruit in the glass or not. And then I think we agree on this part. You always look like the best cherry to garnish with is a Luxardo cherry.
Luxardo cherry
every
time. Yeah.
So you have a different way of doing this.
Yes. The simple syrup is the lazy man's out. Like the lazy man's way out. Really, it traditionally is done with a sugar cube. I mean, I'm not a bartender, but I think I have a pretty good palate. And I think
traditionally, as in like the 90s where drinks were made like in cheap, fast ways, or
what? It is not cheap or fast to do it with a sugar cube. It takes a little bit more effort and love and zhuzh.
And zhuzh. Okay. So for everybody still with us here, we're in a really important topic about the best way to make an old fashioned. But I do want to come back to business real quick. Jess, you've said that your business has quadrupled. You're healthier than ever, or you said quintupled. Basically, I want to paint this picture of somebody who went from being homeless, leaving her state, leaving everything behind abruptly, barely being able to get out of bed, and then just digging it out for a whole year, and now being on the other side of that, where business is coming to you, leads are coming in, you got a puppy, we're doing this podcast, things are rocking and rolling. What is the one thing for you that has surprised you that works for your business to get it to go to this point?
What I'm capable of doing.
What do you mean?
And for clarification, all of those things didn't just happen in 1 year. That this has been almost a 4-year journey. And every time I learned that I'm capable of way more than I ever thought I was.
When you say that, I can see your energy change. I know you well enough to know what you mean when you say that. How do you know where that line is of whether you're actually capable of something or not?
You fuck around and find out.
Okay, so what's that mean to the person who's like, waiting, hanging on every word?
Stop cussing.
Yeah. Like, well, somebody's listening, right? And they're like, well, I want to. What does that mean?
Yeah. It means like even when you're super scared, do it anyway. And if you fail, it's not actually failing. My test now is, do I have a roof over my head? Am I physically safe? Do I have food in the fridge? The first time I put food in my freezer and fridge, I literally took a picture of it because I was so proud of myself that like I did that. And do I have a stalker? Yes. Am I still safe? Yes. If anything happens, everyone knows who did it.
Mm.
So, so I guess with all of that is am I safe? Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have food on the table? If the answer to all of those is yes, then nothing else matters. Try it. Like whatever you're contemplating doing, just do it. The
Mm.
worst thing that can happen, you're not going to get homeless. And even if you do, guess what? Like you'll figure a way out of it.
I remember being nervous to buy my first house, and I was thinking about all these things that could go wrong. And my brother, who's old, he's about 8 or 9 years older than me. He's like, dude, what's the worst that's going to happen? And in my panicky state, I was like, well, I might not be able to make all the payments or something. And he's like, well, then what's going to happen? Like, well, then the bank's going to foreclose. And he's like, well, then what's going to happen? I'm like, then I'm going to be homeless. And he's like, and then what would you do? I'm like, I'd work really hard to be able to buy another house. And he's like, oh, that's so scary, and it was like, okay, and for everybody listening, if you go back and you listen to the 2 episodes with Dr. John Conley that I've recorded, we talk about fear and how it's essentially useless. Now, don't get me wrong, it does keep us out of danger sometimes, but in our mostly protected modern society where we can have a warm roof, we have access to clean water and things like that, it is mostly useless. I think it's a really strong argument that it's keeping us safe from things that don't exist. So in this case, that fear of foreclosure was keeping me safe from something that I wasn't never going to let happen in the first place. But we indulge in those fears. Go ahead. You got something?
Yeah, no, I think there's something to be said about, if you don't learn the lesson will be taught to you. And I, at one point, thought that I had to learn that lesson. I thought I had to go through something so outrageous. And then I did, because I believed that I had to go through something so outrageous. I had to be put in a position where I was afraid for my life. I was afraid for my parents' lives. And once I was put into that situation, that fear, it was real. I mean, it was I was in a very dangerous situation. Now I have that perspective because it's like, oh, am I sleeping next to AR-15s? No, we're winning. This is good, But I believed I needed an experience like that in order to thrive. And I believe that I manifested that experience as a result. And if you believe that if you believe in your fears, then your fears will come true, right? But if you can understand that, like you said, what's the worst that can happen? Usually when you question what is the worst that can happen, you only go, I mean, or not you only go, but you go about 10 to 15 layers deep before the worst that can happen is you're dead.
Mhm.
But there are so many things that have to happen in order for you to get to that rock bottom that once you realize that, I mean, you will not allow that to happen. You won't. Like we won't.
I do think that's the brain's way of shortcutting all of it, right? Is it jumps ahead to those, it like looks at these stepping stones, like, well, then this could happen. Like I said earlier, like, well, then if I don't make a payment, then the bank's going to foreclose. And then if the bank forecloses, and my brain is like living in that possible future and like using these stepping stones as, okay, well, that's all that could happen. But then something happens where it just immediately ties that worst case scenario back to the first thought,
Exactly.
right?
If you buy a house and you can't make one payment, you will be homeless.
That exactly. And so, but what an amazing machine that we've evolved into, our cranium here that goes, we're going to think that fast and shortcut or diffuse any action you might take that would lead to that possible future and just
Mhm,
shut that shit down. Right.
mhm.
So how have you dealt with that? Learning what you've learned, encountering and experiencing all of those terrible things. How have you learned to deal with that brain trap?
Like I said, literally, I just put it to the question of, am I safe? Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have food on the table? If the answer is yes to all of those things, then the worst that can happen is I will figure it out.
That's that's a bold statement
I
because
mean, I
go
didn't
ahead.
know 2 days ago I was going to come home with a puppy. And Literally, I mean, that's not that extreme, but for me, it is rocking my world right now,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and this is like a 35-pound puppy. Um,
That's a big
huge.
puppy. Yeah.
He's a horse, you know, and I was so unprepared for him. When I woke up that morning, I did not know that I was going to end that day with a puppy. I had basically 2 hours. I found out at 2 p.m. I was going to go meet someone at 4 p.m. to go to her ranch. I had no clue. And I figured it out, you know, I figured out a crate, a dog bed, you know, I have a dog trainer. She came 24 hours after I got him. I mean, you figure it out when you want something bad enough. So if
Yeah.
you don't want to be homeless, then you'll figure it out.
So that's what you're doing right now. You've got this growing business. You're figuring out how to get to the next level of your business. And let's also be like, give people the full picture. You're figuring out team building, scaling this business, dating, puppy, all the mindset issues, all the drama that it takes to get uncomfortable and put yourself out on social media like you've been doing, taking on more business than is comfortable sometimes, saying yes to opportunities. And like we were talking about earlier, teaching these groups and leading your own group training, group coaching program. Well, first of all, let me stop there. Does that bring up anything for you when I say all of that you're doing all of that?
It's kind of wild.
Yeah. What do you
I
think
mean,
about it?
like a year ago, Jess would have dreamed. I mean, I hoped that this is where I would be, but oh, wow.
What is the main difference between that Jess a year ago and this Jess now?
Oh my gosh. Um, well, I have been more decisive in the past year than I've ever been. And more decisive so that I could fail faster. And failing faster has pushed me to go further faster
Mm,
because I have made a lot of mistakes over the past year.
yeah. Haven't we all? I mean, I think this is one of the big myths is that there is a right way to do business and there's a right way to live, that you can somehow avoid mistakes. Like you can strategically avoid them, as if anybody you've ever met has done that.
I think the right way to run a business and to live your life is to make mistakes, though.
Yeah.
And the bigger the mistakes, the more you learn. It's almost like a shortcut. Like the bigger the mistake, I mean, I'm not like advocating to put yourself in danger, but if you make the bigger the mistake, it's like a slingshot. You pull yourself back and then oof, you will be catapulted forward
What's
after you
the what's the biggest mistake that you don't regret making?
changing brokerages.
Okay, so for everybody, we'll catch you up real quick. If you missed that earlier, you want to tell them where you're a real estate agent?
I'm a realtor in San Luis Obispo, California, Pismo Beach. Um, yes.
West, like if
West
you don't
Coast,
know what any of that means,
California.
West Coast,
Oh,
Central
so I
Coast.
should, yeah, so Central Coast of California, which is halfway in between LA and San Francisco on the beach. It is just absolutely beautiful. I'm literally looking at the ocean right now. It's really stunning.
She's just saying that to rub it in my face because
I did. I
it's
did.
40 degrees in Kentucky today, everybody. Okay, let's just take a breath here. But I'm looking at 95% of the world's bourbon out my backyard. Not kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So what do you want people to know about that?
It took, so I was very, very loyal to my first brokerage for a lot of reasons. Actually, going back to that really terrible situation I was in, the people in my brokerage, including my broker's wives, were there when the police were there and uh, helping me. I had to pack up my entire 3-bedroom house pronto, so that I could get out of state. And I didn't have anybody to help me. And it was my brokerage that came and helped me, and the owners and their wives. And so and the things that they found that this guy had hidden all over the house were just humiliating. I mean, I was just so embarrassed. And I had so much loyalty to them for that. In addition to them being good people, and it was a great brokerage. Jumping ship to another brokerage meant getting very clear on how much growth had happened since that day that the police were at my house. That guy jumping out a 2-story window fleeing. That person was a different person than this woman who is now looking to grow her business and grow a team and become wildly successful. And so having to get very clear on what I wanted was a big deal. So I got very clear with your help, changed brokerages, and explored a new world. Love still to this day the brokerage that I was at, but realized it really wasn't the best fit for me. And the business partners I had chosen within that brokerage were not a good fit for me either. And so learning all of that and understanding why, and again, getting the clarity of, okay, what kind of person am I? What kind of brokerage is the best fit for me? What kind of people do I want to surround myself with? Getting very clear on that helped me make the decision to go back to my original brokerage, which that was a whole other thing. That was like kismet, happenstance. I wasn't looking to go back.
Was it though? Was it happenstance? That doesn't seem to be the way that Jess lives her life. It just things, you would just happen upon things.
I fully believe in manifestation and the universe having your back. And I believe in all of that. And so I say happenstance, but really I was called back.
So you've been called back. It's working. Things are going well. You're a different person, I think it's safe to say, than who you were a year ago. I think, honestly, you're a different person than who you were 3 months ago. And that's the fun part of watching you evolve so quickly and take on this fail forward perspective. Because you're here for it. You're pun intended, but you're in the rabbit hole and you're here for the transformations that come with it. So I'm going to move into 2 or 3 last questions. Anything else before I shift from your story and who you are and what you've learned in your breakthroughs? Anything else that you want to share with people, or it's on your heart that you want them to know? And keep in mind, most of these people who are listening are oriented like you. They enjoy personal growth and they love building their business, or at least are passionate about their work, even if they don't own the business. Is there anything on your heart you want to share with them?
Okay, so I would say that I'm a very loving, empathetic, and caring person. So getting outside my comfort zone and doing these things that in my opinion, risk relationships with people who I want to get along with is scary as hell. And putting myself out there is very scary, and it pays off. So, I guess I would want to tell people, take a deep breath, chill out, maybe have some bourbon, and do it anyway.
When you say take a deep breath, do you have a practice for that you could share with people well, I mean, I'm serious because so many people hear that, like, take a breath, but they don't know the actual move to do. Do you have a particular thing that works for you?
So box breathing is really good. You can just if you Google breathing exercises, any of them are really helpful, but even breathing in for 6 seconds, holding it for 6 seconds, exhaling for 6 seconds, holding it for 6 seconds, and just do that, I don't know, 4 times. I mean, if I had to prescribe something, that would be it, but now it's just second nature to me to slow down and literally breathe.
And for everybody listening here, I have to do this with not just Jess, but every single client, because they come into coaching and they want to solve problems, and those problems make them relive what the problem is, or make them jump into the future of what the problem could be. And the body doesn't always know the difference, that it's not actually happening right now. So the body starts to respond and send the stress hormones and tighten the breath and quicken the pace of everything. And you hear the words get real tight and the breathing is super shallow and frustration. Right. So you learn to catch this, and Jess does a great job of just kind of like separating herself. Like her mind just drifts off for a second, and you can hear her go and like take that deep breath to recalibrate. I'm thinking of another client. I won't say her name, but she's a big deal in her state, and she has a very high responsibility role in her industry, and things go wrong. And when I mean things go wrong, like lives are at stake. And she has done exactly what Jess is talking about, which is she has a system, a ritual, a practice that she deploys with her breathing to get her mind under control so that her decisions are clean and clear. And don't get me wrong, she's not perfect. Jess isn't perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody's doing this right 100% of the time. That breathing exercise, it starts with that sometimes. And that's what's fascinating to me. Just like we can appreciate the different notes in this bourbon, there's so many different things a person is experiencing when they're in stress, when they're in passion, when they're excited. There's a lot happening. But I'm with you, Jess. If anybody listening is looking for an entry point to get their stress under control, that breathing exercise is a great place to start. All right. You ready for a couple last questions?
Sure.
All right. If you were a cocktail, like you have one in your hand there, what would your ingredients be? Like, for instance, a guest said they'd be like 1 part fiery determination, 2 parts dedicated to their mission, and 1 part sick and twisted humor. What
That's a
would
good one.
Jess Burns be?
I would be 3 parts. I mean, I don't know. I'm going to make up these numbers, but 3 parts obsession with knowledge and growth. 3 parts spunk, firecracker. 2 parts hilarious. A dash of sunshine, stirred, not shaken, and served over a single large rock as to not dilute any ingredient.
Nice. Why stirred and not shaken?
Because that goes to part of the delusion. Like, you know, there is this you don't want it to dilute, but also there's like this gentle is the wrong word, but there's almost like this classiness to being stirred rather than shaken up abruptly.
This is so Jess. This is hilarious. This is so great. This is you in a nutshell. Except for I do think like a jalapeno or something needs to be thrown in there.
That was the spunk, but you know, like
okay,
yeah. We'll throw a jalapeno in there.
Okay. All right. If I pushed you, what would you name this cocktail?
Oh, are you ready for this?
No, probably not.
The Brainy Jester.
Wow. Okay.
Jester. The Brainy Jester.
All right. Why the Brainy Jester?
Because I am really smart. But that can be clouded by how boldly, I don't know, audacious or hilarious some of the things I do. They're pretty out there. And that's the jester part. That's you know, I'll throw a wig on. I won't throw a jester hat on, but I'll throw a wig on and go out and have fun with some girlfriends or shoot a video or two.
Can you tell them real quick about the T-Rex costume?
Oh my gosh. So every now and then, like twice a year, I like to do something that spreads joy to people. Some of those people are my clients. Some of them are just random people that I know. And I got inspired a few months ago to, I really wanted a T-Rex costume and I couldn't figure out like a reason for it. And then I was like, oh no, I know the perfect reason. I'm going to spread joy in a T-Rex costume. So I literally ordered that inflatable T-Rex costume and went to a bunch of people's houses and danced and spread joy. And I rapped. I did a rap.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. You know,
a real estate rap.
Realtors are always looking for creative ways to connect with people, but a rapping T-Rex, I had never heard that one before.
I hadn't either.
It's so
So
funny.
ridiculous. But you know what? Everyone was happy and smiling, and that's all I care about.
There you go. So the brainy jester really fits. What do you think, Jess? Is there anything you've got an opportunity here to plant a seed in someone's mind or ears at least and potentially change their life? The show's called Bourbon and Breakthroughs. Is there anything you want to leave somebody with that might help them have a breakthrough?
Hire a coach.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Why?
that simple. Uh, I think, I don't know if it was you or someone else that has coined the term, but any great athlete has a coach. Why is it so acceptable for athletes to have coaches, but it's termed unacceptable, or it's downplayed that we as normal, quote unquote, humans, we don't need coaches, or therapists or whoever. Like, we all need help if we want to get better. So if you want to improve your life and if you want to get better, then what do? You hire a coach. Put me in, coach. Come
Right?
on. Put me in this game of life.
I heard somebody the other day talking about the greatest athletes of all time. They weren't like I think of Tom Brady's, whether you love him or not, you can't argue with his results. And it's not like he said, "Oh, I've won 2 Super Bowls. I don't need a coach anymore. Thank you very much." Or I've won 4 Super Bowls. I don't need a coach anymore. Or I've won 6 Super Bowls. I don't need a coach, right? It did not. And we're talking tiers of coaches, like levels of coaches, not just one coach. So yeah, I think we can all learn from that example. It's great. I didn't pay you to say that. I didn't. You didn't even get your gift yet for the episode, so I definitely didn't bribe you to say that. So wrapping up, I do want people to be able to find you. Let's say they really connected with you, they love your spirit, and maybe they want to talk more about the Brainy Jester. Where do they find you if they just want to connect with you?
So Instagram is the best spot, at Jess Burns Realtor. So JessBurns Realtor.
Not at Jess Burns
Not
Homes.
Realtor. Oh yeah, I not Jess Burns Homes. I do not burn homes down.
Can we just address that real quick? Most people have no comprehension of this. The term realtor, REALTOR. This is the thing. I'm not even active anymore. My license is in referral, and I still correct people on this because I'm like, hey guys, I know you don't mean to do this, but every realtor who hears you say realtor, it's like nails on a chalkboard. There's no in there. And this is coming from a guy who lives in the South and talks like a banjo fell downstairs. So realtor, like Lindsay always says, real door. Right? Like a real door, a realtor sells the home with a real door, not realtor.
But we love you anyway. So I will still
you
work
have
with
to
you.
get it right or we won't love you. That's...
Well, Chris won't work with you anymore, but I will.
I see that as a public service announcement. That's I'll get off my soapbox about the term realtor. Jess, it's been a blast. Have you enjoyed the bourbon?
I absolutely have. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you to you. Thank you to our friends at Rabbit Hole. Thank you to everybody listening. If you enjoyed this show, please do us a favor. Share it with somebody who can find value in it, who can find it useful, and who can do something with it to change their life, to improve their business, or at least improve what's in their glass today. Jess, cheers. Thank you so much for being on Bourbon Breakthroughs.